Welcome to Litbit channel. Today we will see General Your Tank by Bertolt Brecht. Let's see the summary of this poem. How has irony and satire been used in the poem? In introduction part, Bertolt Brecht is a German playwright and poet, and he always wrote for the causes of his humiliated and the offended, and always extolled the greatness of the ordinary man. His poems are remarkable for their wittiness, variety, and choice of themes. Simple and direct, his poems be a testimony of his genius for language. General Your Tank is a part of his famous anti-war poem from a German war primer. Next para to deliver about satire of this poem. In this poem, General Your Tank, Bertolt Brecht expresses his strong and abiding faith in the greatness of mankind. The poem is a satire on war and military generals. The figure of the speech in the poem is irony. In every war, it is a poor soldier who fights and gets killed, bringing glory and praise to the lazy, fatty military generals. The ordinary soldiers is always forgotten, and the general is raised to the status of the hero on winning the war. Bertolt Brecht skillfully used irony and satire. Then throughout the poem and convince the reader of the foolishness of the military generals and also the futility of war. Bertolt Brecht poems is addressed to the military general and tells with contempt that his tank is a powerful vehicle because it can destroy forests and kills hundreds of men. But alas, it has a defect. Without a man driving the vehicles, it becomes as useless as the general who is helpless without the soldiers fighting bravely under him. Again, the poet tells the generals that his bomber plane is very powerful because it flies faster than wind, can carry heavy things, but it is useless without the mechanic who is an ordinary soldier in the force. Brecht used irony to show how dehumanized and made helpless men by machines. Man has become a slave of machines, but machines are invented by men, and machines are utterly useless without man. Yet it is a tragedy that machines use men as it is slaves because all skillful, creative, and useful works are being done by machines. Finally, the poet tells the general that man is very powerful for the general because the general uses soldiers and machines equally in the war, and more importance is given to the machines. The soldiers can fly and kill people, but he also has one defect. The defect is that man can think. In military, thinking is a defect. If the generals have intelligence to think, they will not fight and put an end to war by discussion. And next summary, discuss General Your Tank as an anti-war poem. The poem General Your Tank is an excerpt from a general war primer in which Brecht expresses his strong and eviding faith in the greatness of mankind in unambitious terms. This an anti-war poems where he ironically told the horror effects of war. It is the soldiers who fights and gets killed, bringing lateral to the general in the process. The ordinary soldiers is always forgotten. Brecht expresses his dislikes towards wars and he ridicules the general in the poem. The general seems to be powerful with his tank and bomber, but his tank has a defect that needs a driver, and the bomber, even though is powerful, needs a mechanic to function. He adds that the general has a man capable of flying and killing, but there is one defect the man can think, the man is the one who convert every actions. If only he begins to think, he can render all machines weapons of destructions in the powerless and put on end to wars by refusing to cooperate with warmongers. According to the poet, what are the inherent weaknesses of otherwise powerful machines? According to the bracket, the man is the one who only can operate a powerful machines and at the same time he can think also. So those are the inherent weakness of apparently powerful machines. In this poem, General Your Tank, Bertolt Brecht expresses his strong and abiding faith in the greatness of mankind. The poem is a satire on war and military generals. The figure of speech in the poem is irony. In every war, it is the poor soldiers who fight and gets killed, bringing glory and praise to the lazy, fatty military generals. The ordinary soldier is always forgotten, and the general is raised to the status of a hero on winning the war. Bertolt Brecht skillfully uses irony and satire throughout the poem and convince the reader of the foolishness of the military generals and also the fertility of the war. Bertolt Brecht poem is addressed to a military general and tells him with contempt that his tank is powerful vehicle because it can destroy forest and kills hundreds of men, but alas, it has a defect. Without a man driving the vehicle, it becomes as useless as the general who is helpless without the soldiers fighting bravely under him. Again, the poet tells the general that his bomber plane is very powerful because it flies faster than wind, can carry heavy things, but it is useless without a mechanic who is an ordinary soldier in the force. Brecht uses irony to show how dehumanized and made helpless man by machines. Man has becomes a slave of machines, but machines are invented by man, and machines are utterly useless without man. Yet it is a tragedy the machines use man as its slaves because all skillful, creative, and useful works are being done by machines. Finally, the poet tells the general that man is very powerful for the general because the general uses soldiers and machines equally in the war, and more importance is given to the machines. The soldiers can fly and kill people, but he also has an one defect. The defect is that man can think. In military, thinking is a defect. If the generals have intelligence to think, they will not fight and put an end to the war by discussion. Thanks for watching this video, viewers, and please subscribe my channel.